What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and today I have my Houston Texans season preview for y'all, so let's hop into it. And if you like this type of stuff, please consider subscribing. But anyway, last year the Texans finished with a 3-13-1 record. They missed the playoffs. They finished last in the AFC South, but that record was good enough to net them the second overall pick in this past year's draft. And with that pick, they used it on quarterback CJ Stroud out of Ohio State, and I will get to that a little bit later. But first off, let's go over some of the notable free agent signings this team made to help improve the roster for this year. They brought in wide receiver Robert Woods, who is a good veteran guy to have on this team to help CJ Stroud just as a reliable wide receiver. They brought in quarterback Case Keenum to back up CJ Stroud and probably just to let Stroud learn a little bit from a veteran quarterback as well. Defensive end Chase Winovich, defensive tackle Sheldon Rankins, safety Jimmy Ward, linebacker Corey Littleton, running back Devin Singletary, tight end Dalton Schultz, linebacker Denzel Perryman, tight end Nick Vannett, and cornerback Shaquille Griffin. So a ton of veteran guys that this team brought in to help improve. They also made a trade for offensive guard Shaq Mason, who they then signed to I want to say it was like a 3-year extension, which kind of segues nice into some of the guys that they did re-sign. Offensive tackle Laramie Tunsil, offensive tackle Titus Howard. So the Texans prioritized that offensive line, and I think they did a really good job at that. They got to keep their young quarterback healthy. They got to keep him upright. And one of the best things in this league is to have a good offensive line, which the Texans do seem to have. They also re-signed cornerback MJ Stewart, linebacker Neville Hewitt, defensive tackle Malik Collins. So not too many re-signs and not too many bigger name re-signs besides the offensive linemen, but still a good job at keeping some of the talented guys that they already had on this roster who did make an impact for this team. And they didn't really lose too many people as well. They lost tight end Jordan Atkins, who they did a pretty good job at replacing with tight end Dalton Schultz. They also lost tight end OJ Howard, which they also got tight end Nick Vannett. So the guys that they lost, they replaced pretty easily. Defensive end Obo Okunronku, quarterback Jeff Driscoll, just to kind of round out a few notable players that also left this team. But Houston has done a pretty good job to fill those holes. But one of the things with the Texans and all these players that they brought in, they also brought in a new coaching staff. So they brought in a new head coach in D'Amico Ryans, a new offensive coordinator in Bobby Slowick, a new defensive coordinator in Matt Burke. So with a lot of players coming in, with a new coaching staff coming in, I think they're probably going to be a decent amount of growing pains. I don't think this team is going to mesh well, at least this year. I think there's just going to be a little bit of chaos. I don't know if chaos is the right word. I just don't think things will be too smooth for the Texans for this year, especially with a rookie quarterback under center. And like I said before, so many veterans, so many new guys on this team. I just don't see it flowing smoothly. But that brings me to their rookie class. And with their first pick, they drafted quarterback CJ Stroud, who they hope is their quarterback of the future. And I've said in previous videos, I am not high on Ohio State quarterbacks. I don't think their talent translates well to the league. Like, I look back just the past decade or so, like quarterback Braxton Miller, great at Ohio State, made it to the league, didn't really work out. Terrell Pryor transitioned to a wide receiver in the league, and he had more success as a wide receiver in the league than a quarterback. Cardell Jones, the late Dwayne Haskins, all these guys had great careers at Ohio State, yet they never really translated well to the league. Justin Fields is almost in that same category as well. I know they think he's going to be a top 10 quarterback this year, and others, like, I'm just not high on the guy. And I think CJ Stroud kind of falls into that group. And like, unless he proves otherwise, I just don't think Ohio State quarterbacks make it well in the league. And I think there is a decent amount of evidence to back up that claim. But yeah, so hopefully he proves me wrong. I don't want to see anybody fail, but I just kind of have my doubts about him as a quarterback. They also traded back up in the first round and got linebacker Will Anderson Jr., probably one of the top prospects in this past year's draft class. So that was a really good signing. He's going to make an impact right away for this team. They then got center Juice Scruggs out of Penn State, another guy that I think can step in and make an impact on this offensive line right away. Wide receiver Nathaniel Dell, defensive end Dylan Horton, linebacker Henry Tuatu, center Jarrett Patterson, wide receiver Xavier Hutchinson, and safety Brandon Hill. So they had a decently good draft class. Like, they hit a lot of players. They got a lot of good players, a lot of potential in their players. So hopefully that does translate well onto the field for this team. But I just think there's a lot of uncertainty with the team, and I'm not super high on them. So with all that in mind, let's move over to their schedule and my record prediction for the team. All right, now so in week 1 they have the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore, and with a rookie quarterback with CJ Stroud at the helm, this Ravens team is probably one of the best teams in the AFC. So I don't see this going well in week 1 for the Texans, and I think this will be a loss for the team. And that L, it's kind of hard to see, so I will change their losses to black, I guess. So I'll do black losses just so you can see it better. So they lose week 1 to the Ravens. Then in week 2, they have the Indianapolis Colts. And this offseason for the Colts, it's just been dysfunctional. The whole Jonathan Taylor dilemma, all this stuff going on behind the scenes. And I think with all that chaos going on, the Texans get their first win of the year in week 2 against the Colts. Then in week 3, they play the Jacksonville Jaguars in Jacksonville. And I have high hopes for the Jaguars this year, so I do think the Texans drop this game. Then in week 4, they have the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the Steelers are an interesting team because I don't think Kenny Pickett is the quarterback of the future for that team. But the Steelers always seem to have a good defense, and they're always right around 500. Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season as their coach. So I just think with the Steelers' defense being able to confuse a rookie quarterback such as CJ Stroud, I do think the Steelers get the win and the Texans lose right here. Then they travel to Atlanta, and I have high hopes for Atlanta this year, and I just don't think the Texans could beat them either or the Saints. So that brings them to their week 7 bye, and they're sitting at a 1-5 record. So very not good. Like I said before, this team has a lot of moving parts. They brought in a ton of guys. They have a completely new coaching staff. It will take time for them all to mesh together. And I just don't think this is their year. I think this is the year to just kind of see what they got, know which players they can keep for their future. So I do think this year is going to be another down year for the team overall. But coming out of their bye in week 8, they're at Carolina. It'll be the number 1 pick versus the number 2 pick, and Bryce Young versus CJ Stroud. And I feel the Panthers just get the better of the Texans and they lose again. But then in week 9, they play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who they are my pick to finish last in the NFC South. And so the Texans definitely get a win right here against the Buccaneers. But then the following week, they travel to Cincinnati. And hopefully, Joe Burrow is fully healthy at this point in the season. And if he is, the Bengals easily win. If he's not, I still feel the Bengals pretty easily win this game. So that is a loss for the Texans. But then they travel to Arizona, and Kyler Murray should be back at this point. But if he's not, or if he is and got injured or just has a ton of rust, I feel that this game could be a win for the Texans. So I'll give them the benefit of that out right here. And with it being in Houston, I think just gives them just a little bit more incentive to win, or not incentive, but just a little more reason to win this game. But then they play Jacksonville again, and I do feel Jacksonville sweeps them. Jacksonville is my pick to win this division. So yeah, they lose here to Jacksonville. And then they have the Denver Broncos, who is Sean Payton going to turn this team around? Is Russell Wilson going to bounce back to MVP form? I don't know. But overall, I do think the Broncos have a better overall roster than the Texans, so I feel the Texans lose this game. And then in week 14, they're at the New York Jets. And I don't have super high hopes for the Jets this year, but I do think all around the ball, they are a better team than the Texans. I think they probably have a better coaching staff. They have a better quarterback. So I feel this will also be a loss. And then in week 15, they travel to Tennessee in their first of 2 matchups against the Titans. And I think the Titans probably sweep the Texans this year. So I think this week 15 game is a loss, as well as this week 17 game is a loss. And then they have the Cleveland Browns right here in week 16. And I do have higher hopes for the Browns than the Texans. Hopefully, the Browns are playing for a playoff spot. Otherwise, it'll just be another disastrous year for the team. And in my scenario, in my head, I feel the Browns have something to play for here, while Houston definitely doesn't. So the Browns come out and get the win, and Texans get the loss. And then we already talked about the Titans, them getting swept. And then the last week of the season, they close it out against the Colts, who've just had, in my mind, a horrible year. And they get the win in week 18. Just a little something to look forward to for next season. And that brings their season total to 4 wins and 13 losses, which is definitely not great. They match their loss total from a year ago, but they do get one more win. So I guess there is a little silver lining in that. I just think with all the guys that they brought in, with a new coaching staff, with a rookie quarterback, there's a lot can go wrong. There will definitely be growing pains. There'll be their ups and their downs. So let me know what you guys think. Do you think they will be better than 4-13? Do you think they will be worse? But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. I will catch you with another season preview. God bless.